Discover the incredible heartwarming secrets behind Vietnam's life-changing war tunnels revealed. Ethan sat at the back of the auditorium, a small dot in a sea of familiar faces. The auditorium buzzed with the chatter of students, but he felt miles away. Today, veterans from the local community were sharing their stories bound in valor and sacrifice, wrapped in layers of history and heartache. As a poster fluttered above the stage, proclaiming the miracles held within Vietnam's tunnels, Ethan felt an unexpected pull. The tales of courage and resilience ignited something deep within him. He thought of his father, a Vietnam War veteran, locked away in a world of memories he rarely spoke of. His dad's silence had been a wall between them, thick and imposing. Yet, here were men who had traversed those very tunnels his father had helped to forge. Had they faced the same horrors? What secrets did they carry beneath their tough exteriors? As the first veteran began to share his story, Ethan leaned forward, heart racing. "We built those tunnels as shelters," the man said, his voice tinged with pain. "But they were more than that. Each curve, each escape route, was a testament to survival." Ethan felt a warmth unfurl within him, a connection forming from the complexities of history and family. His friends exchanged sideways glances. "Look at Ethan, getting all emotional over ancient history," one snickered. Ethan's heart sank. Their cruel laughter was a stark reminder of the rift he lived with, the pull of loyalty to his father drowned out by the loud need for acceptance. Over the next few weeks, while the buzz around the school grew more dismissive, the economic reality outside morphed into chaos. The family business that anchored their community crumbled. The local diner, the heart of their neighborhood, began laying off staff. Rumors of impending closure swirled like storm clouds overhead. Ethan watched as his father's shoulders slumped, the weight of silent struggles pressing heavily on him. He felt the sting of the disconnection anew. His father's past mirrored in the shadows of their present. Then came an unexpected moment. One night, after letting silence stretch uncomfortably between them, Ethan seized a breath of bravery. "Dad," he whispered, "tell me about Vietnam." The man's eyes glistened, and he paused, caught off guard. His father opened his mouth and hesitated before finally weaving a tale crafted from fragments of the past, a story of fear, comradeship, and resilience. Each word was a bridge, frail yet beautiful. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Ethan hung on every line, realizing the depth of unspoken love behind his father's silence. Yet, as their connection blazed, they faced the looming collapse of their livelihood. Would it be enough to mend their bond crafted amidst the wreckage of circumstance? With determination swelling within him, Ethan knew he had to step up. He would not only defend his father's honor but fight for their community too. Could he find the strength to unite them all against the tide, or would the chasm between the past and the present prove too wide to bridge? Ethan felt a spark ignite within him. The weight of his father's words was heavy but exhilarating. Those stories didn't just belong in the past, they pulsed with life, threaded into their current struggles, the struggles of their town that echoed the sacrifices of another time that he watched as days turned into weeks. The local diner, once a bustling hub filled with laughter and steaming platters, stood eerily silent. News of layoffs spread through their community, and every closing bell felt like the tolling of a funeral. His friends continued to laugh off the stories shared by the veterans, mocking him for being so invested. But each laughter sting ached like a bruise as he witnessed the pain his father carried. One evening, Ethan found himself at the diner. The faded checkered tablecloths and the lingering scent of bacon grease held countless memories. It was from this little place where life had once thrived in his town, where townsfolk gathered to share meals and stories. But now the tables were empty, and the laughter had turned to whispers of anxiety. That he spotted his father, hunched near the window, staring into oblivion. Ethan's heart twisted. He recalled the stories, the bravery, and the heroism, and it stirred a defiance within him. He approached his father and sat down. "It's time we showed everyone what we can do," he said, determination glowing in his eyes. His father looked up, the deep lines on his face telling a story of their own. "What do you mean, son? What if we host an event?" The idea unfolded spontaneously. "We can bring everyone together, the veterans, the community. We can share stories, raise awareness, maybe even start a fundraiser to save the diner." His father's eyes brightened. "You really think it could work?" Ethan nodded. "I believe if we share those stories, it'll remind everyone of what we stand for and the strength we can find together." The idea began to take root. They spent days planning and gathering support. They reached out to other veterans, families from the diner, and community members drawing strength from their connections. The sense of purpose filled their home like warmth on a chilly day. Ethan felt closer to his father than he had in years, their bond thickening with shared resolve and hope, but the obstacles came tumbling in. Doubts crept in from all directions. Would anyone really show up? What if they failed? The echoes of laughter that once filled the diner felt distant, replaced by a chilling fear of disappointment. On the day of the event, Ethan stood by the entrance, his heart pounding like a drum. The signs he made were crisp, the tables were set. As the first few families trickled through the door, apprehension melted away, replaced by a bittersweet warmth. His father appeared beside him, a reassuring smile on his weathered face. "You've done something amazing, Ethan. You brought us together." The night unfurled in unexpected ways. Stories floated through the air, laughter filled the corners, and for the first time in ages, hope sparkled in the depths of the diner. Ethan felt pride blossoming in his chest, but the lingering questions held on. What if this hadn't been enough? What if the fight was just beginning? As the night wore on, when the last tale was told and the final table was cleared, Ethan's eyes wandered to the empty space where his mother used to sit. Could her spirit still guide them? Would the community rally behind them as they faced the trials ahead? He knew their next step awaited, and it loomed ahead like an uncharted tunnel. They had begun this journey, but what lay beyond their initial triumph? Would their newfound connection withstand the tests ahead? With his heart in his throat, Ethan looked at his father, counting on the strength they had ignited together. He took a deep breath, a question lingering over him like a flame. How far could they go? The weeks that followed the event were filled with a new energy. The diner began to see more faces, some familiar and some new, as the stories shared sparked curiosity and hope. Ethan felt a weight lift, like a heavy cloak slipping off his shoulders. The sense of unity in the air was tangible, the townsfolk needed each other, and now they had a reason to come together. Ethan and his father tossed around ideas on how to keep the momentum going. One night, after a long day working on a community mural that celebrated local heroes, Ethan plopped down on the couch, a light bulb flickering in his mind. What if we organize a monthly storytelling night? Just like we did before, but with different themes. Families can come and share their experiences, their fears, their dreams. His father, still framing a picture from the event, paused. That's a brilliant idea, son. The more stories we share, the stronger we'll grow. It's not just about the past, it's how we move forward. And so began the rhythm of their lives. The storytelling nights took shape. As word spread, more people showed up. The diner transformed, not just into a gathering place for food, but a sanctuary for connection. Each voice became a thread, weaving them together, binding their shared experiences into a vibrant tapestry, but behind the warmth was an incessant worry gnawing at Ethan. While attendance grew, he struggled with how this newfound positivity could be sustained against the mounting challenges surrounding their town. And he feared for his father, watching the old man smile in public but sensing the heaviness beneath. Ethan caught him gazing out the window during quiet moments, and it troubled him. One evening, after yet another successful gathering, Ethan found his father in the diner, fixing a light by the counter. The murmur of conversations faded to a low hum as Ethan approached. "Dad," he said, concern lacing his voice. "Are you okay? I can see something's bothering you." His father, surprised by the directness of the question, stepped back and sighed. "It's nothing, really. Just sometimes I think of your mother." His heart felt heavy as he continued. "She would have loved seeing all this. But it's a struggle, son. I want to believe it's enough to turn things around," but Ethan swallowed hard. "I know. But look at what we've done already. We've created something special. People are talking. We need to keep that going, don't we? Maybe reach out beyond the diner. Share our stories in neighboring towns, connect with others who've been through just as much." For the first time in ages, Ethan saw a flicker of hope in his father's eyes. "You're right. If we could share these stories beyond just our little corner, it could mean so much more. It would remind each person they're not alone." The two plotted and planned deeper connections, making calls and rallying volunteers. The notion of expanding their efforts began blooming in Ethan's heart like a seedling reaching for the sun. As they put their dreams into action, the town faced an unexpected storm. Rumors surfaced about a new factory set to be built in their area, a potential threat to the diner and their community spirit if it deterred the focus on preserving local culture. Ethan felt his heart race. With the stories they'd spun into a lifeline, could they really face an outside force? He looked at his father, determination ignited within him. "This is where our journey really starts, isn't it? It's crucial we rally together now." His father nodded, a storm building in his eyes. "Yes, and this time, we'll need every voice." As they prepared for what lay ahead, a deep question hung between them. Would they have the power to unite their town against this threat? Would they turn their stories into action in time? The answer awaited them, just beyond the horizon. Ethan took a deep breath as he stepped outside the diner. The evening air was crisp, the kind that made everything feel a little sharper, a little clearer. The stars twinkled overhead, but their brightness felt muted compared to the swirling emotions inside him. He knew it was time to take their cause beyond the familiar walls of the diner. He and his father had spent the last few days crafting a plan. Their first step was to host a meeting for concerned town members. The goal was to gather support, share their vision for storytelling, and rally everyone against the factory proposal. It was ambitious, but it felt necessary. As the sun dipped below the horizon the next day, casting warm golden light through the windows of the diner, Ethan lined up chairs in anticipation. The old wood creaked under his weight as he arranged them in a circle. He put up a sign that read, "Together for our stories." When the first wave of townsfolk trickled in, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Faces he recognized were joined by new ones, each with the weight of their own stories to share. He noticed Mrs. Henderson, her eyes bright behind her glasses, and young Sam, shouldering a backpack like it contained the weight of the world. "Hey, everyone!" Ethan called out, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm, "Thank you all for coming. I know things feel uncertain right now. But together, we can use our stories to forge a path forward." The murmurs of agreement buzzed through the crowd. His father stepped forward, a fixture of calm amid the chaos. "We've got to remind each other why we love this place, the people, the stories, the connections we've built." They shared anecdotes, laughter mingling with tears. Images of holidays spent in town, of friendships forged over coffee at the diner, and dreams that spanned generations flickered like the lights above them. For every voice added to the conversation, a weight seemed to lift just a little more. But then, as the discussion deepened, shadows crept in. It was a voice from the back, filled with skepticism. "What if this factory ends up doing more good than we think? Jobs, revenue. We can't just fight change." A hush fell over the room. Ethan felt his heart sink. Doubt lingered like a thick fog, threatening to unravel the bonds they were weaving. His father stepped forward again, steely resolve in his voice. "You're right. Change can bring opportunity, but we need to ensure it respects our community's heart. Our stories hold a powerful truth. They remind us of who we are. It's not just about what's coming, it's about what we've built and who we want to be moving forward. Ethan breathed in the energy shifting around him. Slowly, hands rose in agreement, voices of affirmation grew louder. They were ready. As they mapped out plans for their first community event, an evening of celebration and storytelling that would showcase the town's wealth of history's excitement replaced the earlier uncertainty. Ethan exchanged glances with his father, a sense of solidarity sealing their resolve. Yet, as they wrapped up, a different kind of tension gripped Ethan's heart. A factory was looming, and they knew nothing about the real stakes involved in its arrival. If they pushed back, would it push back harder? Ethan looked around the room, a mix of determination and apprehension swirling in him. They had the community's spirit, but would it be enough to withstand the storm ahead? He held on to hope that their stories would be a shield against the encroaching change. With that thought echoing in his mind, he turned to face the group again. "Let us show them who we are," he urged. "Let us make our voices heard." And as they left, energized and united, one question lingered in the air: could their stories truly be the beacon they needed? The path ahead felt uncertain, but they were ready to embark on this journey together. The sun rose slowly the next morning, casting a soft light over the diner. Ethan stood behind the counter, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. He felt the weight of the previous night's meeting resting on his shoulders, but there was also a flicker of hope. As he handed a steaming cup to the first customer, a familiar face, he realized this was only the beginning. "Morning, Ethan," called out Ms. Roberts, a longtime cafe regular. She took her cup and leaned on the counter, her eyes sparkling. "What's the plan for the storytelling event?" Ethan smiled, grateful for the friendly face. "We're pulling together our histories, sharing what makes this town special. Everyone's going to have a chance to speak." "Sounds wonderful." Ms. Roberts beamed. "I've got some old photos from the town's centennial celebration. Maybe those could inspire some stories." Ethan felt a rush of excitement at her enthusiasm. "Absolutely. Bring them along. The more stories, the better." As the diner filled with chatter, Ethan's heart swelled. The initial doubts from the meeting began to fade, replaced by an undercurrent of energy. Town members began sharing ideas, and soon it felt like the entire diner was buzzing. That evening, anticipation filled the air. Ethan and his father worked tirelessly to set up for the event. The diner was transformed, bright lights strung around, tables decorated with flowers from local gardens. It was a picture of unity, warmth, and resilience. When the clock ticked closer to 6, townsfolk streamed in, their faces lit with excitement and curiosity. Ethan watched as each person found their seat, exchanging stories and laughter, their voices blending into a comforting chorus. He scanned the room, spotting the familiar faces of friends and family, but also those who had been quiet at the previous meeting. Tonight, they all felt connected. Once everyone settled, Ethan stood before them, heart pounding. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Our stories matter, and they help us understand who we are as a community," he began, his voice steady. "Let us honor the memories, the challenges, and the hopes that brought us together." As townsfolk began to share, the room filled with laughter and tenderness. Mrs. Henderson spoke about her late husband, recalling their first date in the very diner they were gathered in. Young Sam stood nervously but powered through a tale about the giant pumpkin he grew for last year's fair, his confidence growing with every chuckle from the crowd. Ethan watched the mixture of joy and sighs of nostalgia envelop the room like a warm blanket. This was what they needed, a reminder of their shared past, a piece of comfort against the storm ahead. But then, the tension returned. A group of newcomers, recently moved to town, brought their concerns to the surface. "This event is lovely, but we can't ignore that if the factory does bring jobs, many of us might not have a choice," one of them said, uncertainty clouding their voice. Ethan felt a chill run through him. The seeds of doubt began to sprout again. He understood their point but feared that fear could overshadow the spirit of the gathering. Just as the unease threatened to take over, his father intervened, wise and calm. "How about we talk about how we adapt?" he suggested, sharing stories of other towns that had faced change. "Embracing new opportunities doesn't mean abandoning our roots." The air shifted. Ethan felt the tension disperse as nods and murmurs of agreement emerged. Hope flickered back to life, and the stories continued to unfold, rising like steam from the coffee cups lining the tables. As the night drew to a close, and the final stories were shared, they wove a tapestry of resilience. Ethan saw sparks of inspiration exchange in the eyes around him. "Together, we are stronger," he reminded them as they prepared to take their stories into the future, facing uncertainty with the strength of their shared history. But just as they prepared to end the night with laughter, a shadow fell over the windows, the imposing figure of the factory looming at the edge of town. Ethan's heart raced. What would that concrete giant mean for their stories? Was their unity strong enough to face what lay ahead? He looked out at his community, every face reflecting hope and fear. The journey was just beginning. Could their love of stories light the way? The morning after the event brought a crispness to the air, the sun peeking through a blanket of clouds. Ethan was at the diner again, but he wasn't as certain as before. The memory of the towering factory lingered in his mind, casting an anxious shadow over his persistent hope. He poured coffee, glancing at the empty seats that had just been filled with laughter hours earlier. "Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost," came a playful voice from behind him. It was Lisa, his childhood friend, and she had a way of cutting through his worries with a smile. "Just thinking about last night," Ethan admitted, wiping the counter absently. "It went well, but I'm worried about what's coming." Lisa leaned against the counter, her eyes serious now. "You can't let fear dictate how you lead, Ethan. Everyone's counting on you to guide them through this." She took a sip of her coffee. "What's the plan?" "I don't know yet," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to find a way to keep that same energy and connection alive, even as we face the unknown. Let's brainstorm. Maybe we establish a monthly gathering? We could have different themes each time, and everyone could share their stories. It would keep the town engaged and invested." Ethan nodded, the idea beginning to take root. That could work. It would create a bridge between the past and what's coming. We need to remind everyone that change doesn't mean losing who we are. As they talked, the door swung open, and in walked Mr. Thompson, a retired teacher and community pillar. "Morning, Ethan. I heard about last night. Quite the gathering. You're inspiring folks." "Thanks, Mr. Thompson," Ethan replied, a small smile creeping onto his face. "We're trying to bring the town together." Mr. Thompson leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Just remember, change can shake things up. Some folks might resist the new factory. They might need reassurance that they're still valued here." Hearing it from him made Ethan realize the weight of the situation again. It wasn't just about stories anymore, it was about the town's identity as it stood on the brink of potential upheaval. Just then, a group of children burst into the diner, laughing and chasing each other. They were playing a game of tag, oblivious to the heavy conversations around them. Ethan couldn't help but smile. How could he protect this innocence from the looming changes? "Ethan?" Lisa brought his attention back. "We could involve them, too. Let's have storytelling activities for kids. They can create a theme or even perform their stories. Maybe that way, they'll find their voice in all this." His heart swelled at the thought. That's brilliant. Stories aren't just for the grown-ups. They need to know their thoughts and dreams matter, too. Fueled by their ideas, Ethan felt a revitalized sense of purpose. He was determined to push forward, not just out of duty, but for the love of the people around him. "We'll set a date and spread the word. I'll make flyers," he declared, excitement bubbling in his chest. But just as they were diving deeper into plans for the next storytelling event, the diner's door swung open again, and a chill swept through the room. A tall stranger stood in the entryway, his heavy jacket set against the early spring breeze. He scanned the diner with a keen gaze, a clipboard in hand and an air of authority that immediately set off alarms. Ethan's hope flickered momentarily as he exchanged glances with Lisa. Who was this newcomer? And what did he mean for their stories, their events, their lives? With uncertainty hanging in the air, Ethan's mind raced. How would this stranger impact the town? What answers, good or bad, did he hold in that clipboard? The stranger stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind him, sending a shiver across the diner. The chatter momentarily hushed, eyes darting toward this unexpected visitor. Ethan felt the weight of those curious gazes on him. He could sense the tension in the air, a collective breath held tight as they waited for the man to make his move. "Excuse me," the stranger said, his voice steady but commanding, "I'm here to review the impact of the new factory on local employment. I'm Robert Hawthorne, from the state." He took a step forward, clipboard clutched under his arm, a pen ready to shake loose from its hold. Ethan's heart sank. The factory, once a spark of hope, now felt like a looming threat. "And how can I help you?" he asked, trying to keep his tone even, masking the unease that churned within him. "I've heard a lot about the community engagement efforts," Robert replied, eyeing the vibrant diner, finally softening his gaze. "I'd like to know how you plan to keep residents informed and involved." Ethan shared a brief glance with Lisa, who raised her eyebrows as if to say, "Let us show him what we're about." "We're planning to host monthly storytelling events," Ethan began, feeling a flicker of that earlier excitement seep into his words. "To keep everyone connected through shared experiences, especially with all the changes coming." "Interesting," Robert noted, jotting something down. "People need to feel involved if they want to embrace new jobs." "What else are you doing?" Lisa leaned in. "We're including kids in the storytelling, letting them voice their dreams and fears. They're the future, and we want to make sure they feel part of this community, too." Robert nodded, his demeanor loosening as if he was grasping the enthusiasm pulsing around him. "That's great. Child engagement is vital. But have you thought about the fears that parents might have, the anxieties surrounding job loss?" Ethan took a deep breath, sensing a door ajar to a conversation that could shift the narrative. "Absolutely. We're working to reassure everyone that their contributions matter. We need these stories to build trust. The factory isn't just change, it's an opportunity for growth." As the words flowed, he felt the stirrings of hope gathering within him once more. What if Robert could become an ally rather than a threat? What if the stories and the community's spirit could win him over? Robert furrowed his brow, the pen poised, before he broke into a slight smile, almost conspiratorial. "I'd love to help amplify your efforts. You should consider partnering with local organizations to enhance visibility. I know a few contacts who could assist." Ethan felt warmth spread from his chest to his fingertips. Could they really turn this moment around? That would be amazing. "I'm open to any ideas you have." Engagement swirled through the diner again, a buzz of new possibilities taking root in the vibrant air. Lisa beamed at Ethan, and he could see the glimmer of hope returning to the faces around them. But as the conversation deepened, a shadow fell across the diner's front window, a figure standing outside, glaring in. Ethan's heart raced with a strange mix of worry and curiosity. Who was watching from the outside? As the door swung slightly in the breeze, he caught a glimpse of a face he recognized. One he hadn't seen in a long time. One that might open up a whole new set of questions about loyalty and history. What truths lay buried beneath their shared past? What would this new development mean for everyone in the town? Ethan's breath hitched in his throat as he held Robert's gaze, then flicked it back to the window. His stomach knotted. The familiar face sent waves of memories crashing down on him, both sweet and painful. It was Jake, his childhood friend, the one who left town in search of bigger dreams, only to return months later. Ethan had thought their paths were forever diverged. The diner's chatter faded into the background as the realization hit. What if Jake's return meant trouble? The factory was a contentious topic, with many in town divided over it. Jake had been one of the loudest against it back when the plan first leaked. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. Would he stand beside him now, ready to ignite old fears? Do you know him? Robert asked, his brows raising as he noticed Ethan's distraction. Yeah, we grew up together, Ethan mumbled, trying to mask the uncertainty in his voice. But as he returned his attention to the stranger, the weight of his childhood friendship felt heavy, almost unbearable, and the air thickened with tension. The door swung wide open, and Jake walked in, a burst of energy that broke the collective silence. His face was a mix of determination and nervousness. Ethan. We need to talk. Jake. Wow, it's been a while, Ethan stammered, uncertain how to bridge the gap between their shared past and the sharp divide that had formed. What is going on here? Jake shot a glance at Robert, sizing him up. Is this guy really here to help us? Robert cleared his throat, immediately switching gears. I'm just gathering feedback on the community's perspective about the factory's impact on employment. Jake laughed, but it was hollow, devoid of the warmth he'd once shared with Ethan. We're just supposed to accept it to survive, huh? Ethan felt a swell of frustration. It's not just survival, Jake. This can be an opportunity for growth. Opportunity? Jake mirrored the sentiment with a sneer. You mean lining the pockets of corporate greed? This town was built on the backs of its people. We can't just forget that for some shiny new jobs. Robert's posture shifted, the smile fading from his lips. I assure you, that's not the intention. We want to work with the community. Ethan watched as the diner patrons leaned in closer, their expressions a mixture of interest and apprehension. The air crackled with uncertainty. Are you sure? Jake challenged, stepping forward, fists clenched tightly at his sides. You're not trying to smooth things over just for the sake of your job. Because it feels like it. The room fell silent, tension hanging thick as people exchanged glances, weighing their own opinions against the flow of the moment. I can understand the concerns, Robert said, a defensive edge creeping into his tone. But change is change. Jake interrupted, an edge of anger in his voice. Change means loss for us. You know how many people are scared of this? Ethan felt the fire rising in the diner. The energy was shifting, turning towards confrontation. His heart raced. Was this where the community would lose its chance for unity, where old wounds would rip open again? Jake, Ethan said, reaching for his friend's arm. Let us hear him out. Fighting won't get us anywhere. But Jake shrugged off his arm, eyes locked onto Robert. As the debate deepened, could they reconcile past loyalties with the promise of a future? Outside, the sun dipped lower, shadows creeping into the diner, a timely reminder of the darkness that was threatening to overtake them. Ethan felt a chilling realization wash over him. This argument was bigger than him, even bigger than Jake. It could tear apart everything they were trying to build. But was there still a way forward? Could he mend the rift, or was it only the beginning of a far bigger battle for the town's soul? As voices rose and emotions flared, the diner echoed not just with uncertainty, but also with a feeling of impending change. What would happen when truths collided? Ethan's heart raced as Jake's voice rose above the other conversations, slicing through the din like a knife. The diner felt charged, alive with the energy of old wounds being uncovered, and Ethan could sense the collective breath being held in anticipation of what would come next. Look, Jake said, drawing the attention of the diners, his hands gesturing passionately. This factory is just a shiny distraction. They're promising jobs, but what happens when the dust settles? When the corporate machine has chewed through what little we have left? Ethan couldn't deny the truth in Jake's words. The town had already lost so much its identity, its heart. But he wanted to believe there could be a way to channel change positively. But we can't just sit still either, Jake. If we don't try to grow, we'll die out. I'm not saying we should stagnate. Jake shot back, the veins in his neck tightening. I'm saying we need to be careful. Don't trust those in power. His voice quaked with passion, and his dark eyes burned into Ethan's, as if willing him to understand. Ethan felt the warmth of frustration mix with regret. Memories flashed in his mind, the carefree days of laughter shared, the summer nights spent on the town's playground, dreams whispered in the darkness of their childhood. Was that bond enough to bridge this chasm of belief? I used to think we could make a difference together, Jake. We were a team, remember? That was before the world changed, Jake said, the words heavy with a sadness that echoed through the diner. The tension in the room shifted, people leaning in close, their eyes darting between the friends. It felt like the fragile walls separating ideals were about to come crashing down. Ethan stepped forward, needing to reclaim the ground between them. Maybe we can be a team again, just in a different way. We can listen to the people, get their concerns out in the open. His voice trembled with determination. But we need to find common ground. Silence enveloped the diner for a brief moment, but it was broken by a soft voice from the back. You're right, Ethan. We do have to listen, but how do we know they will listen to us? It was Claire, an older waitress who had been an anchor in the community since Ethan was a child. Her wisdom cut through the tension like a knife. By asking the tough questions, Robert chimed in, and by making sure everyone has a seat at the table. It's about collaboration. His enthusiasm had re-emerged, though the shadows of doubt still lingered. Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this could be a turning point, a chance to gather perspectives, to reshape a community rather than let it fracture completely. But doubt still gnawed at him. More voices began to rise in unison, bringing a mix of skepticism and interest. Some diners nodded while others shook their heads, caught in the push and pull of conflicting feelings. Jake stared hard at Ethan, his brow furrowed. You really think their essay shot? That this can work? I do, Ethan replied, locking eyes with Jake. But it's going to take all of us. We can't just fight against, we have to work together. Jake looked down, emotions battling within him. The weight of history bore heavily on both their hearts, and Ethan could see uncertainty written all over his friend's face. Just then, a pang of desperation filled the air, like the echo of an unanswered question hanging between them. The room murmured, understanding this couldn't just be a conversation, it had to lead somewhere. The sun slipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue on the diner, illuminating the faces of those gathered. It was a moment suspended in time, full of possibility but underlined by unease. Ethan took a step closer. Let us gather the community, hold a meeting. We can share ideas, discuss concerns, but we have to put aside fear. We have to find a path forward. Are you sure? Jake asked, his voice softer now, yet laced with uncertainty, and as Ethan nodded, belief swelling within him, the world outside grew darker. Would hope really prevail amidst the shadows creeping into their lives? The conversation was just beginning, but the stakes felt impossibly high. As doubts lingered and tension simmered, Ethan was left grappling with a question that loomed ahead. Was change about to tear everything apart, or could it heal old wounds? As the days turned into weeks, the air hung heavy with anticipation. The diner, once a sanctuary of shared history, was now accepting the weight of uncertainty from the looming factory. The people of the town had gathered, pulling their hopes and fears into conversation after conversation. They were ready to stand together, yet the threads of conflict still ran through the fabric of their community. Ethan felt the urgency ignite within him. He spent countless evenings at the diner, poring over ideas with his father and Lisa, planning for the community meeting. The goal was to create an open forum where everyone could voice their concerns, fears, and hopes, an invitation for collaboration to redirect the factory's arrival into a shared opportunity for growth. They spread the word, urging everyone to come, and a buzz began to permeate throughout town. The night of the meeting arrived, and the diner glowed warmly against the cool evening air. Ethan set up chairs in a larger circle, mouth dry with nerves as he glanced around at the simmering crowd. He saw familiar faces interspersed with newcomers, but he could also feel Jake's absence like an echo. Was he still standing firm on his earlier stance? As patrons shuffled in, the electric hum of conversations filled the air, merging voices like a symphony. Ethan's heart raced as he took a deep breath, reminding himself of the stories that had brought them here. They weren't just about the past anymore, they marked the potential future that lay ahead. When he stepped forward, all eyes turned to him, and he felt the warmth of their collective energy. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice steady yet laced with sincerity. "We're here to listen to each other, to share our stories, and decide what kind of community we want to build together. We can't ignore the factory or the fear that looms, but we can transform it into something that works for all of us." The crowd murmured in agreement, each person breathing their own interpretation of hope into the room. But just as confidence began to blossom, a voice emerged from the back, cutting through the optimism that had taken root. "And what if this is just fluff? How do we know they'll actually listen to us?" It was a familiar voice. Jake. He stood firmly, arms crossed, and Ethan's heart twisted at the tension that mixed between them. "We need to be realistic," Jake continued. "We can't let our community get steamrolled. They'll pit us against each other, trust me." "Wait," Ethan interjected, holding up his hands. "Jake, I understand your concerns, but this is our chance to define the narrative. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Or send us down a path that leads to regret," Jake shot back, the air thickening with tension. Ethan's throat constricted as he glanced around, sensing the crowd divided, swaying between Jake's apprehension and his willingness to embrace change. The moment was charged with uncertainty, but he knew he had to make his stand. There had to be a bridge between the two sides. "Look, I know we're scared," Ethan spoke to the room, his heart racing. "But we can't move forward if we're at odds with each other. This isn't just about you or me, it's about us. Our community's resilience depends on our willingness to face this together, united." For the first time, he saw glimpses of understanding flicker in Jake's eyes, a confusion perhaps, but also a realization that they weren't enemies, they were brothers shaped by the same soil of history. As voices began to rise again, Ethan called for calm. "Tonight, let us try something different. Let us share our fears, but also our ideas. Can we do this together? It is essential that each perspective is welcomed." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, and as people began to voice their own experiences, something shifted. Each story that unfolded echoed the heart of their community, the love of nostalgia mixed with aspirations for their children's future. Slowly, Jake too softened. He listened and then raised his voice with a newfound edge of vulnerability. "I hear you all. I don't want us to lose what makes our community special. I want to protect that even as things change." And suddenly, in that shared space, amidst raw honesty, something miraculous sparked unity. Ethan felt a wave surge through the room, an electrifying shift from doubt to determination. They were less alone now. As the meeting wrapped up, faces that were once set in stone began to carry lines of hope. They pledged to take their stories beyond the diner and reach out to the factory representatives, building a bridge of dialogue rather than resentment. Ethan felt gratitude wash over him as he stepped back from the conversation. Determined to make a difference, Ethan and his father crafted a proposal. They invited the factory's management for a meeting, aiming to open a discussion that would allow community voices to be included in the plans for their town's future. Yet as anticipation built, they faced the prospect of uncertainty again. Days later, the diner buzzed with excitement as the factory officials arrived. Tension hung thick, but Patricia, the town's beloved mayor, took the stage, her voice commanding attention. "We appreciate your willingness to engage with us," she announced, eyes glistening with determination. Ethan shared their proposal, carefully outlining their desire for collaboration, their need for jobs intertwined with community preservation. They emphasized the need to celebrate and honor stories, the heart of their town, and how vital it was to maintain the community's identity, even amongst change, skepticism danced in the air, but a flicker of hope ignited when the factory officials engaged with empathy. One of them, a young woman named Lily, understood the gravity of the moment as she shared, "We want to create jobs, yes, but not at the cost of your community. Our intentions are to improve lives, and working with you is essential to that." And suddenly, it was clear this was more than a conversation about a factory. It was about shared dreams, concerns, and the realization that their voices united carried weight. Together, they set tentative plans to implement community forums, ensuring transparency and maintaining dialogue. As the meeting wrapped up, Ethan felt an overwhelming wave of release. He watched his father beam with pride, the lines of worry easing on his face. This was the start of a journey that would continue to reshape the future of their town, igniting bonds that had been waiting to be kindled. When the meeting finally ended, Ethan was swept into a warm embrace from his father. The joy bubbled in his chest, knowing they had traversed the darkest tunnels together and emerged into light. The challenges wouldn't vanish overnight, but the connection in their community was now blooming. That night, Ethan sat at the diner, surrounded by laughter and the sweet aroma of comfort food. The diner buzzed with voices embracing the narrative of resilience through storytelling, through unity, and through love. These were the threads that would hold them together. With a radiant smile, Ethan knew they could strengthen the fabric of their community, the unyielding spirit of their stories now forever etched in the hearts of every soul gathered together. And when the morning light spilled through the diner's windows, it brought with it radiant promise. They had not just faced what loomed beyond the horizon, they dared to shape it. Each challenge was a step into a new chapter written by the people who loved their town. Together, they began anew. Now is the time to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to not miss any future stories of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these tales reach others who need to hear them. And comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. It matters. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey. Your voice matters.